نستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ثم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. عيدكم مبارك. Belatedly, Eidukum Mubarak. Welcome back. I am really excited for this class, for this session. This, of course, is Word to the Wise. This is a session in which we aim to impart easy to implement, practically beneficial spiritual advice or wisdom. And we want to do this in a way that a person can enter with no prerequisite knowledge of Islam and still benefit from this session, whether they are practicing Islam at a very high level, an intermediate level, or a very basic level, even if you are someone who is merely interested in Islam or just interested in good vibes, good settings, good people. This, inshallah, is the space for you. And we're very happy to have you. We've been reading an old traditional book, a book that was written about 800 years ago, believe it or not. And when you think about that, it's really phenomenal because the author of this book, his name was Ibn Ata'illah, was writing about his relationship with God, offering perspective to people who want to seek a closer relationship with the divine 800 years ago. And here we are now in Chicago reading those insights, reading those perspectives. It almost makes you a little emotional, like he wanted to convey a message and God allowed or God permitted that message to reach people he probably couldn't even have fathomed, right? And here we are reading his book. This lesson is a lesson in which he's talking about planning. Our last class, which was about 6 weeks ago, right? So you don't remember anything from that class, trust me. He was talking about bad planning, what it is to plan in competition with God. Now he's talking about good planning. He says, planning the affairs of this life for the afterlife, for what comes after this life, on the other hand, is like one who arranges their business in order to profit lawfully therefrom. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, طلب كسب الحلال فريضة بعد الفريضة. The Prophet ﷺ said, seeking a lawful income is the obligation after your cardinal religious obligations. That seeking a means of taking care of yourself that is lawful. And when we say lawful, that entails not being harmful to people. Bless you. I was being sarcastic. Yahdikum Allah. When we talk about having a halal income, it entails doing something that makes money that does not harm people. They say the lowest level of spiritual integrity is to harm no one. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Al-mu'minu man amina an-nasa min bawa'iqah." That the mu'min is the one from whom other people are safe from their mischief. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-mu'minu al-muslimu man salima al-muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadi." The one who submits to God is the one from whom other people are safe from their tongue and from their hand. Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha, they came to her, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, They said, tell us something about the messenger of God that if we adhere to it, we will embrace something of his sunnah. She said, you want to know something about the Prophet? Sallallahu He never harmed with his blessed hand. He never struck with his blessed hand anyone, not a man, not a woman, not a child, not an animal, except when he was fighting in the path of Allah. See, this is the messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. He never avenged personal rivalry through violence. Never. He did not harm anyone except fighting in the path of Allah. Right? This is something that we should strive for. Right? So when you are seeking an income, it is mandatory to do something that enriches the lives of your brothers and sisters in humanity. Not something that destroys them. Not something that harms them. Right? I remember studying business in college. I studied Islamic law at Azhar. The first principle, if you sell people things, you have to sell them things that are of benefit to them. You should not sell them things that are worthless. Right? These are ethics. Sell people things that benefit them. Don't sell them things that are worthless. Right? And another thing we are to mention about this, if a person is working, this is an act of worship. This is a good thing. You know, there was a man, he used to sit in the masjid of the Prophet, ﷺ, praying all the time. He would pray the 5 mandatory prayers, and then he would just sit between the prayers, just making dua. And the Prophet said, what do you do for a living? He said, my brother owns a business. I sit here praying for the business. This was the division of labor. My brother runs the business. I stay in the mosque praying for the business. Now, the Prophet didn't tell him, get out the mosque. He just said, know that your brother is better than you. Your brother is better than you. He's working the business. You're praying for the business. He's better than you. Right? Just so that he wouldn't, in kind of the excessive enthusiasm of a spiritually, a spiritual aspirant, think that he was better than his brother. No, your brother who runs the business, he's better than you. Okay? He said, okay, I understand. He went back to praying for the business, Right? This is what I get paid to do. I get paid to pray for the business. No. If you go out to make a living and your goal is, I want to do something that is halal for my money. I don't want to do anything that is haram for my money. This is an act of worship, right? He said, or to use his money to bestow gratuitous favors upon the needy. I was talking to somebody yesterday at a store that I own just a block away from here. Shameless plug. Benny Adam, 2118 South Halsted. You can stop in and visit me anytime. I'm trying to make a halal income. And I was saying how, it's amazing how we plan our consumption, right? You know what you want to buy. You're budgeting for that new car, that vacation, that purse, that wardrobe. But charity is something that is given haphazardly. Someone asks you and you say, oh man, let me, I don't have anything. And I was thinking, why don't we at the beginning of the week set aside, this is money that I plan on giving away. Not that my charity is haphazard and my consumption is intentional. Everything I want for myself, I'm intentional about it. Even though maybe all of that is just mubah, it's just permissible. It's something I'm allowed to have. A car is something you're allowed to have. Clothes are something you're allowed to have. Dining at nice restaurants is something you're allowed to do. Giving to someone less fortunate than you, This is a meritorious action. It's not something merely permissible. This is something that draws you closer to God. This is something that is recommended for you. This is something you're encouraged to do. So we'll give all of this priority to the merely permissible. But then the thing that God actually commands of us, it's like an afterthought. Oh yeah, I don't have any money on me. Why don't you have any money on you? No, seriously, why don't you have some money that these are $20 in singles that I plan to give away to people on the street who ask me this week? It's $20. You know, Ibn Ata'illah, he said, if you gave a quarter a day in charity, that would be enough for God to write you among the people of charity. Because it's not about the quantity, it's about the consistency. That if you plan to give $1 every day, the fact that you planned it, this is what is impressive. I planned this. This isn't like somebody happened to talk to me as I was entering the restaurant. You got some money? Oh man, yeah, I got something. I happen to have some singles. No. I went to the bank. I withdrew the money for the purpose of giving this to people, right? He says, similarly, a person that wants to work, a person that wants to become wealthy so they can help people, there's nothing blameworthy about that. A person that, wants to earn a lot of money because there's a lot of good that they want to do with their money. This person is not to be censured. This person is not to be shamed. This is a good thing. Sulaiman, alayhi salam, the Quran contains these very interesting juxtapositions. One of them is Sulaiman and Yusuf. Sulaiman is an archetype of what it means to worship God in abundance. Everything. He had the jinn under his power. Damn, that's gangster. The jinn used to build things for him. Imagine visiting somebody and you're like, man, I really like this coffee table. Where'd you get it? Our house? Nope. Restoration? Nope. Where? The jinn made it for me. Damn. That's cold-blooded. You know what I'm saying? Couple jinn made it for me, man. You won't be able to find that at Restoration. Not that one. The jinn used to make things for him. And he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, Allah, give me a dominion, give me a kingdom, the like of which you've given no one before me. Scholars say it's halal to ask for what you want. But in the case of Sulaiman, it was only so that he could express a gratitude that no one before him had ever expressed. So that he could serve God with that kingdom. And Yusuf alayhi salam is an example of what it means to serve God when you've lost everything. Estranged from his father, betrayed by his brothers, jailed in spite of his known innocence, serving his fellow inmates, forgotten by them, and he's still devoted. He's still committed, right? Sometimes we have a Yusufi path, and sometimes we have a Sulaimani. We have a Joseph-like path, sometimes we have a Solomon-like path. But if you are asking God to give you, but it's so that you can do good with what you have, there's nothing wrong with this. He said, or simply having money to protect your honor from people. This is a very difficult concept to explain. Because two things that seem to be mutually exclusive have to be true at the same time. One, there is no shame in being in need. There is no shame in being in need. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-yadu al-ulya khayrun min al-yad al-sufla." The upper hand is better than the lower hand. Literally, the hand that is giving is better than the hand that is taking. Some of the Sahaba, radiyallahu anhum jami'an, they would give charity, they would place the money on the bottom, and they would allow the indigent person to take the money from the top. Because I don't want you to think that in me giving you, I think I'm better than you. There is no shame in being in need. There is great shame in hoarding wealth when you know that people are in need. But there is no shame in being in need. But if you were given the choice of being in need or being someone that was helping to furnish the needs of other people, you should choose the latter. If you could choose between self-sufficiency and poverty, you should choose the former. There's nothing, do you understand what I'm saying? There's no shame in poverty. SubhanAllah, I remember reading one of Kurt Vonnegut's books, one of those slaughterhouses. But he was talking about how in America, poverty is almost treated like it's a badge of shame. To be poor is almost like you have no value. He said in traditional cultures, you always had people that were poor, but honorable. Poor, but exemplary. In fact, today I homeschool my son. And I don't know why I'm using like one of the most Eurocentric curriculums in America to teach him, but we were studying the history of Rome. And we were talking about the origin story. Thank you so much, Sister Jackie. MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. We were talking about the origin story of Rome. And it comes down to Remus and Romulus. And in the story, their lives were threatened and they were put in baskets. The baskets were put on the river. The baskets were saved by wolves, and then they were raised by wolves. And then the author, she said, you will find that in the ancient world, they often use stories like this to make their king seem more legendary. He was raised by wolves, right? There was honor in that this person came from very little. That was seen as being something, commendable. This person you see sitting on that magnificent throne, he was raised by a wolf. No, he wasn't actually raised by a wolf. But in America, we don't really, poverty is something, there's no value in it. It's almost treated like something that, a person is to be blamed for it. How did you end up like this? It must have been laziness, negligence, personal irresponsibility. What happened to you? Right? This is not who we are. Some of the best people that ever walked the face of the earth were poor. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allahumma ja'al quta, maj'al rizqa ali Muhammadin quta. He said, oh Allah, make the rizq of the family of Muhammad their daily bread, their daily provision. The Prophet actually prayed to Allah, don't make my family rich. Just give them what they need. Right? This is our tradition. So there's nothing, poor people are not to be shamed. Right? The Ahlul Sufa, these were a group of people, all of them indigent. They lived in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, and they would just follow him around. The most prominent of them was Abu Hurairah radiallahu an. Right? That's not our way. But, and this is why I say it's difficult to explain this, but self-sufficiency, being able to care for yourself, not being forced to ask someone else to provide for you, is more honorable. There's nothing shameful about poverty, but it's much more honorable to be in a position to care for yourself. So if you're working and your aim is, I just want to be self-sufficient, I just don't want to be a burden to my mother or my father or my brother or my sister or my community or the taxpayers or anybody. I don't want to be a burden to anybody. This is an honorable goal. He said, the telltale sign of this beneficial pursuit of wealth is the lack of amassing and storing up wealth, but rather using it to rescue others from ruin. That the sign in his teaching here that one has an unhealthy relationship with money is the amassing and storing up money. Just letting money just pile up. Right, you know, subhanAllah, I remember taking a class in economics, and my teacher was talking about zakat. And he said, zakat not only encourages charity, it encourages commerce. Because if you put your money into the economy and it's working for you, you don't have to pay zakat on that money, because that money is creating jobs, it's creating commerce, it's actually helping people to establish their livelihoods. Zakat is only paid on the money that you hold, right? It's only paid on your savings. It's not paid on, if you're constantly, in the market, you don't pay zakat on that money. Right? It's only paid on money that you hold, because money that is being held is bad for societies, right? This is every time, like now, and by the way, I didn't plan this in conjunction with what's happening with the tariffs. But when money is pulled out of markets, right, this is when the economy begins to experience some recession, because that money's not working anymore. Here he's saying this, the sign that a person has an unhealthy relationship with money is the storing up and the amassing of money. That they're almost holding the money as if it's like they're fetishizing money, like it has some kind of magical power, right? Imam Malik said, is there anybody worse than a person that gives up their akhirah, loses their position in the next life, which is eternal, for something temporary in the dunya? And his students said no. He said, no, there's somebody worse than that. A person that amasses money and just holds it, right? So that he doesn't benefit from it in this world, nor does he benefit from it in the next life. He's just, in Arabic, there's different words, In Urdu, we say kanjuz. The kanjuz guy. Kanjuz is stingy. In Arabic, they say bakhil. But bukhul, the bakhil is somebody that he'll spend money on his family, but he won't spend money on anyone outside of his family. So if his children ask him for something, yeah. But if his neighbor asks him, no, I don't have it. I don't have anything. I can't do anything, right? If friends of his, hey man, could you help me out? No, I can't do it. I looked at Zillow last night. My property is down to $1.3 million in value. I couldn't afford to loan you $100, not until, the estimated value goes back up to $2 million. That's a bakhil. The shahih is even stingier than the bakhil. The shahih is a person that won't even give to his family. He has such an obsessive relationship with money that he won't even spend on his own family, that his wife has to steal money from him, right? Abu Sufyan was a shahih. It's well known. Radiallahu anhu. He became a companion of the Prophet ﷺ. Now sisters love this hadith, mashallah. His wife, Hind bint Utbah, now she tried to protect her husband's honor. She came to the Prophet with her face covered, And this is one of those things that I don't know why the Prophet did this, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But she had her face covered. And she said, what if your husband is so stingy that he doesn't give you the money you need to take care of your daily necessities? And the Prophet said, is that Hind bin Utbah? I don't know why he did that. He said, is that Hind? And she nodded, like, yes, right? I think it was because he wanted to establish that her husband was Abu Sufyan, who was known to be filthy rich. Abu Sufyan had lots of money. So he said, are you Hind bin Utbah? He said, khudi min amwalihi bil ma'ruf. Just take his money, you don't have to ask his permission. Just take his money however you need to, bil ma'ruf. Reasonably. Khudi min amwalihi bil ma'ruf. Just take his money however you want to. You don't have to ask him, just take it. Reasonably. Let me call your sister Hadiya Muhammad, right? That's my wife. I'm just gonna have her pick up the phone and say, reasonably. That's all, baby, reasonably. I know I'm a shahih, but reasonably. But it's, some people think that an unhealthy relationship with money is only expressed in how you spend it. An unhealthy relationship with money is also expressed in how you save it. Right? Now, it's good to save for goals, put something away for a rainy day, make sure your investment portfolio is strong. But if a person just refuses to spend money as if they will never get it back, this is a doubt that they have in their provider. You just won't spend. No. What is that? Where does that lack of security come from? The money you have, God gave you. If you give, God will replenish what he gave you. Anyone who's afraid to spend, لا يقدرون الله حق قدره. They've grossly underestimated God. What are you afraid? Why are you afraid to spend money? Right? The word for gold in Arabic is dhahab, which is from dhahaba, because it goes. You get it, it's gone. It goes. That's how money is. I swear, I got relatives, it feels like they just know when I got paid. How did you know? Man, I was wondering if you could, I'm thinking, I just got a little windfall. How did you know? Allah is testing me. See, Allah is testing me. You see? So here, he's saying the telltale sign that your relationship with money is unhealthy is that not that you're spending it, that you're holding it. Right? He said, giving preference to helping people with your money over other ways of spending it is the telltale sign that you have a healthy relationship with money. That you see your money as a means to being able to alleviate the struggles of other people. The amazing thing about giving is the disproportionality of what is given to what is received. You might give an amount of money that is a small amount for you, $500, $1,000. But for the person that receives that money, man, you would have thought that they hit the lottery. Man, thank you, brother. Thank you. And you're thinking, subhanAllah, something that didn't even, if this was missing from my bank account, I wouldn't even really feel it. This was life-changing for her. This was something that for her suggested that her community still cares. This was something for her that reinvigorated her belief in God's goodness. $500. And you're thinking, man, this is something we might spend, me, a couple other brothers at lunch. And this was something that, for this person, this is a sign that my community actually is considering my circumstance. Thank you. You look at that, subhanAllah. Wasn't that better than a fancy meal? Being able to do that for somebody, wasn't that better? SubhanAllah. He said, from this, it becomes clear that not everyone who seeks benefits of this world is to be condemned. Rather, the condemned are those who seek these benefits for themselves, not for their Lord. For this world, not for the afterlife. People fall thus into two categories: those who seek the benefits of this world for this world, and those who seek the benefits of this world for the afterlife. That even though ostensibly, on the outside looking in, those two people might appear to be the same. Both of them are working the same job. They're both working as hard as they can. They're both concerned about the numbers. They're both being strategic. They're both being careful. They're both saving. They're both investing. But one of them is doing it in the manner we just described. So I can take care of myself, so that I can eat from the halal, so I can care for the people that I love, so that I can discharge faithfully my responsibility to people I'm responsible to. And the other is doing it mere selfishness, to get more and more and more and more of the dunya. Even though they look the same, they aren't the same, right? So if Muslims are looking for, a culture of proficiency in business and financial success, let it be a culture that we want to earn so that we can give nusra, so that we can give aid to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so that we can give gratitude for anything that God has given us, not for any other purpose. The character in the Quran that is emblematic of this is a man named Qarun. Qarun, very interesting. And sometimes I feel bad because I actually, in a way, can empathize with Qarun. Qarun was an Israelite in Egypt. And the Israelites in Egypt, they were an oppressed class. They were an enslaved class. And somehow, in that milieu, Qarun was still able to become the richest person in Egypt. So you can imagine, subhanAllah. Sometimes this stuff gets biographical, man. Autobiographical. One of the when you have very supportive parents and you have a supportive community and you have, you're just born into a situation that is amenable to your success, it's actually less likely that you will become arrogant, because you actually can see all of these helping hands that help to develop you. I had my mother, I had my father, I had, a solid education, I had a world that was just very favorable to my success. But when you succeed against odds, it is much more likely that you have this kind of, I did it. They counted me out, but I made it happen. They thought it couldn't be done, but I did it. This is a lot of the braggadocio that you see in the African American community. When every rap artist is talking about the money that he has, it's because that money represents vindication. I wasn't supposed to have this. I was supposed to be a statistic, dead or in prison. Here I am with another bottle of Dom P. Yeah. You see, there's a vindication in that. This wasn't supposed to happen, right? I was a part of the school to prison pipeline. I just bought another mansion. Rick Ross. I'm on my 20th wing stop, right? So Qarun, but this story is a cautionary tale for those of us who we feel a lot of that. This wasn't supposed to happen, and I did it. Qarun, even though he was from Bani Israel and they were an oppressed class, somehow he still ended up being the wealthiest person in Egypt. And it's mentioned that he was coming out of his house. And they said that he dressed very, very nicely and very extravagantly, that when he walked, his garments always had a train that would trail behind him, and he would have somebody carry the train of the garment, kind of like a wedding dress. That's how they said the storehouses where he kept his money, he needed 10 people to carry the keys that he would use to unlock the storehouses where he kept the money. Man, that's like Scrooge McDuck or something like that, man, right? When he walked in front of his people, and again, his people belonged to an oppressed class, he walked in front of them in a way that in Arabic is called salif. Salif is like, with fakhfakha. Like he walked in front of them like, look at you and look at me. Look at who you are and look at me. And the people, they just said to him, Ya Qarun, ahsan, kama ahsan Allahu ilayk. They said, Qarun, be good to people. Give the way that Allah has given to you, right? They gave him a chance. And he said, Allah, inni utituhu ala ilmin indi. God, I earned this money because of a certain expertise that I have. Don't ever talk to me about God giving me something. And just then, God caused a sinkhole to form around him, and he fell into the sinkhole. Subhanallah. This is how he perished. My point in mentioning this is that if Qarun, when the people said to him, be good to people the way God has been good to you, had just said, you're right, I accept my social responsibility because God has been very generous to me, he would have been fine. When you give in zakah, the only thing you're saying is, I accept the social responsibility that comes with being privileged. I accept that. Right? There is a social responsibility that comes with being a person of wealth. When you give that money, you're saying, I accept that responsibility. I have a responsibility to those less fortunate than me. Right? A person that works for that is a good person. A person that works, أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرِ. Allah says, mutual rivalry and competition in accumulating wealth distracts people until they end up in their graves. This ayah, man, I could spend days just thinking about this ayah. أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ. That much of our obsession with money is not about what the money can actually do. It's about competing with people, right? What's your address? Oh, you live in Lincoln Park. I live in Old Town. You live in Evanston. I live in Kenilworth. You drive a Benz. I drive a Bentley. You drive a Turbo S, I drive a GT3. I actually do drive a GT3. Yeah. That much of this is just about, it's a vain, empty, superficial competition. That's all this is. People trying to assess their value based on what they have versus what someone else has, right? Anybody who's seeking money to engage this empty game is deceived. You've been deceived because none of that actually matters, right? The last one we'll do for today, he said, I heard our sheikh, our teacher, Abu al-Abbas al-Mursi, radiyallahu anhu, say, one who has ma'arifah, one that has supersensory knowledge of God, has no worldly nor otherworldly life. For the life of this world is for his afterlife, and his afterlife is for his Lord. Basically here, he's saying people that have tasted, people that have a direct experience of God. Not, some of us, our faith is based on, theological postulates. If this is this and this is this, then God must be real. If this is this and this is this, then God must be real. Some of us have faith that's based on miracles, right? How else could the Quran, come into existence if it didn't come from God? Some people have faith that is based on experience, right? How do you know God is real? And they look at you and they say, because I know. And you say, okay. You say, because I know. That's the supersensory knowledge he's talking about. They say a theologian is someone that knows a lot about God. Your grandmother is someone who knows God. See, there's a difference knowing about God. That's someone who understands theology. She knows a lot about God. Grandma, she knows God. Sometimes in my community, you'll even have older people who talk about when they met God. I remember when I met God. I said, oh man, Grandma, tell us. I remember when I met the Lord. And she begins to testify that I had an experience and I knew that wasn't nobody but God. And you couldn't, I don't care who you were, you couldn't tell her otherwise. Sorry, Mr. Darwin. I know something you don't know. Sorry, Mr. Hitchens. I know something you don't know. Sorry, Mr. Dawkins. I know something you don't know. Sorry, Sam Harris. I know something you don't know. You see, this is a person that I have an experiential knowledge of God. You might not have that. Whenever I'm teaching this, I always liken it to love. See, someone that either has never been in love or maybe doesn't even believe in love. Maybe it's just a chemical reaction in the brain, increased levels of dopamine and serotonin when you encounter a person. There's a little flutter in the heart, but nothing more than that. No, if you've been in love, you say, no, a lot more than that. How do you know? Because I'm in love. See, I love my wife. So if somebody tried to tell me, no, it's just a chemical reaction. No, I know something you don't know. Maybe you never experienced it like I did. But see, I did. So, hey, the conclusions that we draw are different. People that have ma'arifah, faith is that way for them. You believe in God with all this stuff that's going on? Absolutely I do. Why? Because I know. I've had an experience. I have experiences. He said, people like that, even their life of this world is for their afterlife. This is how they live. This world is a means to gaining nearness to Allah. That's how they see this world. That's all this is for them. You know, I know a few people that I think of as being people of this kind of description. People that the dunya, and by the way, they are not negligent, they don't neglect their families, they're not, mendicants, they're not beggars or bums. They are just people who, it's like they're really in this life as a traveler, right? They're really in this life as like a stranger. It's like they're here, but not entirely, right? I'm here enough to serve the people I'm responsible to. Got to be a good father, got to be a good husband, got to be a good neighbor, right? Got to be a good wife, got to be a good daughter, got to be a good son, got to be a good friend. But beyond that, this life is really just an opportunity for me to access that divine love. That's what I'm in it for. I don't want anything beyond that. I only know, and I've been a Muslim for 26 years, 25 years, something like that. I don't know, converted when I was 2. I know a handful of people that I think fit this description. It's just like the ghuraba. The Prophet ﷺ said, Tuba lil ghuraba, blessed are the strangers, right? One of them is with us here in Chicago. You can visit him. You go to Masjid al-Qassam on 63rd and Holman. Sheikh Muhammad Imam on 63rd and Holman. Just go, anybody. Go and give him salam and just say, Ubayd just told us to come over here and give you salam. Anytime you go, he's there. He lives in the masjid. He has a little small room in the masjid. When I wanted to learn Arabic, I went to him. Now, he pretends like he doesn't speak English. But he speaks more English than you realize, because he doesn't speak English. But when the police come in there, yeah, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. I said, Sheikh Mohammed, you can speak English? He said, only when it's dururi. But just a truly otherworldly person. Sheikh Mohammed is something else. He lives there in the masjid, he leads the prayers, and he teaches. He goes and he visits his family. He's from Alexandria, and he makes Hajj every year. He makes Hajj, he visits his family, then he comes back. He has worked his entire life in da'wah. That's all he does. I remember now, Sheikh Muhammad is Shafi'i in his fiqh. And he would always make dua kunut. At Fajr, he would read a special dua. And there was a brother that came to the masjid, convert to Islam, very, very zealous. And he said, Sheikh, I think what you're doing is a bid'ah. I think what you're doing is a blameworthy innovation in the religion. Now this is Sheikh Muhammad Imam, Azhari min Ayam al-Azhar, a graduate of Azhar University when Azhar University was great. Not like when I graduated. No, I'm just kidding. Right. And I went to Azhar because he sent me to Azhar. He said, you should go to Azhar. A graduate of Azhar when Azhar was great. And he immediately said to this young brother, MashaAllah, to think that I'm trying to follow the Prophet ﷺ, and I might be doing something that goes against his sunnah, and you were able to point that out to me. He said, maybe if you spent the day with me, you could show me other things I'm doing that need correction. Will you spend the day with me? And the brother said, sure. He said, come to the masjid at 4:15. That's when I start my day. He said he came to the masjid at 4:15. Sheikh Muhammad is praying all night. Then he starts greeting people as they come into the masjid for Fajr. Assalamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum. Then he leads the Fajr Salah. Then he teaches the dars after Fajr. Then he prays duha, shuruq. Then he gets on the phone. He's calling people all over the country, just giving them salam, checking on them, just wellness checks. How are you? Then he visits a couple of sick people, visits a couple of widows, comes back to the masjid, leads the people in dhuhr. Then after dhuhr, he takes a nap. He wakes up, leads the people in asr. Then he teaches after asr. Then he leads the people in maghrib. He teaches after maghrib. Then he leads the people in isha. And then he asked the brother, he said, what else did you see that was against the sunnah of my beloved? And that brother died in the wool Salafi. Still is. He said, I've never seen anybody that adheres to the sunnah more closely than this man. This is Sheikh Muhammad Imam. Lives in Chicago right now. You can go visit him tomorrow. Chicago Islamic Center, 63rd and Homan. You've never seen anybody warmer, more friendly. You know, subhanAllah, Sheikh Muhammad is special. He's one of those people like that. Don't tell him I said any of this. Right, don't tell him I said any of this. But he's one of those special people that you should meet. People that have that ma'rifah billah, a direct knowledge of Allah, the ahlullah, the people of Allah. Just go, you know, every time he sees my children, he gives them money. He goes into the masjid. I'm talking big money, $100 bills. Right. My kids say, Dad, let's go see Sheikh Muhammad. I say, no. No. Right? But, you know, so people like this actually do exist. Some of them are actually in our midst. You can go spend time with them, give them salam, visit them, right? See how much of their speech is just remembrance of Allah. You know, I used to sit in his office. I'll give you one more Sheikh Muhammad story. I came back from Yemen. You know, I studied Arabic in Yemen, and I wanted to keep my studies going. So I would go to Sheikh Muhammad 3 or 4 times a week and just read Arabic books with him. And there was a brother that hadn't seen me for a very long time. And as I was in the class with Sheikh, he was outside the masjid like yelling like, Ubay, what's up, Pat? What's up, Pat? What's up, Aki? And I was trying to like hint to him like, you know, I'm in the dars with the Sheikh, you know what I'm saying? And when he became just like so loud, I was like, Sheikh Muhammad, asta'adhiruk lihadha al-iz'aj. You know, I apologize for this, you know, disruption, but I have to go and talk to this brother. And Sheikh Muhammad looked at me and said, disruption? What kind of gathering is this if there's not a space for love and brotherhood? What knowledge are we serious about if there's not a space for love and brotherhood? This is your friend. Stop the daughters, go spend time with him. And I remember thinking to myself, what a culturally sensitive, beautiful man. And then we went back to studying. And then an Egyptian came into the masjid and said, Sheikh Muhammad, aizin nashufak yani. Sheikh Muhammad, we want to see you. And he said, you see what I mean? Brotherhood. Right? Love, right? That's Sheikh Muhammad, mashallah. So there are people like this. But he said, for people like this dunya is really about their akhirah and nothing else. That's all that this is about. It's just about meeting Allah. And their akhirah is just for Allah. Their dunya is for their akhirah is for Allah. That's it. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد